Saparivajakacharya Stottara Shruti Shrimad Divine Grace Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya saved the whole world. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Vrinda Devi Tulsi Mananda ki jai. Shri Krishna Rukmini Satyabhama ki jai. Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan Yatna ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Rukmini Satyabhama ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mudiraye Nashta Prayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text number 13. Khatvango Nama Rajarshir Natpeyatam Ihayushaha Muhurtat Sarvam Utsrajya Gatavan Abhayam Harim. Khatvango Nama Rajarshir Natpeyattam Ihayushaha Muhurtat Sarvam Utsrajya Gatavan Abhayam Harim. Word for meaning. Khatvangaha, King Khatvanga. Nama, name. Rajarishihi, saintly king. Nyatva, by knowing. Iyattam, duration. Iha, in this world. Ayushaha, of one's life. Muhurtat, within only a moment. Sarvam, everything. Utsrijya, leaving aside. Gatavan, had undergone. Abhayam, fully safe. Harim, the personality of Godhead. Translation purport by His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. The saintly king Khatvanga, after being informed that the duration of his life would be only a moment more, at once freed himself from all material activities and took shelter of the supreme safety, the personality of Godhead. Please repeat the translation. The saintly king Khatvanga, after being informed that the duration of his life would be only a moment more, at once freed himself from all material activities and took shelter of the supreme safety, the personality of Godhead. Purport. A fully responsible man should always be conscious of the prime duty of the present human form of life. The activities to meet the immediate necessities of material life are not everything. One should always be alert in his duty for attainment of the best situation in the next life. Human life is meant for preparing ourselves for that prime duty. Maharaj Khatvanga is mentioned here herein as a saintly king, because even within the responsibility of the state management, he was not at all forgetful of the prime duty of life. Such was the case with other Rajarshis, saintly kings like Maharaj Yudhishthira and Maharaj Parikshit. They were all exemplary personalities on account of their being alert and discharging their prime duty. Maharaj Khatwanga was invited by the demigods in the higher planets to fight demons, and as a king, he fought the battles to the full satisfaction of the demigods. The demigods, being fully satisfied with him, wanted to give him some benediction for material enjoyment. But Maharaj Khatwanga, being very much alert to his prime duty, inquired from the demigods about his remaining duration of life. This means that he was not as anxious to accumulate some material benediction from the demigods as he was to prepare himself for the next life. He was informed by the demigods, however, that his life would last only a moment longer. The king at once left the heavenly kingdom, which is always full of material enjoyment of the highest standard, and coming down to this earth, took ultimate shelter of the all-safe personality of Godhead. He was successful in his great attempt and achieved liberation. This attempt, even for a moment, by the saintly king was successful because he was always alert to his prime duty. Maharaj Parikshit was thus encouraged by the great Shukadeva Goswami, even though he had only 7 days left in his life, to execute the prime duty of hearing the glories of the Lord in the form of Srimad-Bhagavatam. By the will of the Lord, Maharaj Parikshit instantly met the great Shukadeva Goswami, and the great treasure of spiritual success left by him is nicely mentioned in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Thus ends Bhaktivinoda purport. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutare Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Khatwango Nama Rajarshir, Nyatve Yattam Iha Yushaha, Muhurtat Sarvam Utstrijya, Gatavan Abhayam Harim. The saintly king Khatwanga, after being informed that the duration of his life would be only a moment more, at once freed himself from all material activities and took shelter of the supreme safety, the personality of Godhead. So this verse is talking about King Khatwanga, who was a saintly king, and he was informed about the duration of his life and how he achieved perfection by freeing himself from this material activities, by taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He achieved going back to Godhead. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining about the prime duty of the present human form of life. So a fully responsible man should always be conscious of the prime duty of the present human form of life. So this human form of life is very important because there is a higher purpose for this in this life which we can achieve. So Prabhupada is explaining that the activities to meet the immediate necessities of material life are not everything. So generally people are interested in activities only for the maintaining the body, and the whole life they spend simply in working hard for acquiring things to maintain the material body. So material activities means basically activities of eating, sleeping, mating and defending. So this activities of eating, sleeping, mating and defending are not the activities which are not the only activities which a human being should perform. Ahara, Nidra, Bhaya, Maithunam. These activities are performed even by the birds and bees. So what is special about this human form of life? So in the human form of life, we can achieve what we cannot achieve in any other species of life. So this human form of life is actually meant for preparing for the next life. As we learn from Bhagavad-gita, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra na muhyati. As we are changing this body, life after life, in this life also we are changing this body, right from childhood to youth to old age. We are changing the body. Similarly, after giving up this body, we have to accept a new body. So, what type of body I will get in the next life is based on the activities that I perform in this life. Just like we have to prepare for the final exam. Students have to prepare for the final exam. So what their future is going to be is determined by how they prepare for the exam. Right? So similarly, our future life, the next life, is based on the activities we perform in this life. So that's why this human form of life is so valuable. We are changing bodies life after life. Sometimes we get a human body. Sometimes we may get a cat or a dog's body. Sometimes we may get birth as a demigod, or we can get birth as an insect or a reptile. But the fact is that I will continue to take birth life after life if I don't do the activities in this human form of life, which is the prime duty of human life. So King Khatwanga, he knew what is the real purpose of this human form of life, and he had prepared for it. He was fully conscious of this purpose of human life, and that's why he took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he was told about he was going to his life duration was only going to be a moment. So how we are changing bodies, how we get the next birth, is based on the association of the modes of material nature. The Bhagavad-gita explains that as we associate with the particular modes of nature, we get the next birth. Karanam guna sangasya sad asad yoneshu janmashu. There are three modes of material nature: the sattva guna, rajoguna, and tamoguna. So, Bhagavad-gita explains that if we associate with a particular mode, we get birth in the different qualities. Like if we are associating with the sattva guna, we can be taking birth in the higher planets. If we associate with the rajoguna, we will get birth in this earthly planet. If we associate with the tamoguna, we will get birth in the lower species, like the animal kingdom. So it is very important that we associate with the right modes of nature. But the ultimate perfection of life we can achieve when we transcend these modes of nature. We have to come to the spiritual platform, the transcendental platform. Then only we can get freedom from this cycle of birth and death. So, how we can become free from this association of the modes of material nature? So, the recommended process is by devotional service. By practicing Bhakti Yoga, we can become free from the influence of these three modes of material nature, and we can be situated in the spiritual platform, in the transcendental platform. So, it's explained in Bhagavad-gita that what consciousness we have at the time of death will determine our next body. So, the full perfection we can achieve when we remember Krishna at the time of death. Krishna explains in Bhagavad-gita, simply by remembering Krishna at the time of death, we will become free from this repetition of birth and death and be transported to the spiritual world, the eternal world. So, this human form of life is not only meant for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So, the present civilization, they are doing activities only for eating nicely or sleeping nicely, defending nicely, and having sex life nicely. So, whole modern civilization is simply engaged in these activities. There is no education as what is the, how I can prepare for the next life. In the modern education, there is no knowledge of the next birth. That's why even the very learned people in the modern education system or the leading leaders of this of the world today, they don't believe in the next life. They think that everything is finished at death. So, Shri Krishna Rukmini Sitavama ki jai, Srila Prabhupada, Nitai Gauranga ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So in this present age, actually everyone is in ignorance. And everyone is engaged in sinful activities by which they have to suffer in the next life. So the so King Khatvanga, he was a saintly king, and even though he was a king, he knew what is the responsibility. Even though he had so many responsibilities as a king, he knew what is the real purpose of this life, and what is the real prime duty he has to perform in this life. So he was always conscious of So he was always conscious of the prime duty of his life, and even though he had gone to the planets of the demigods to fight against the asuras. So he fought he helped the demigods to fight the demons, and because of his help, the demigods, they won the battle against the demons. And so the demigods, they were very satisfied because of his help, and so they wanted to give a benediction to him. But since Maharaj Khatvanga, he was very much alert of his prime duty, he did not ask for any material benediction, but he asked from them how much life mine remaining balance. And after hearing from the demigods, he learned that he had only a moment to live. And so he immediately came back to this earth planet and prepared for the next life by taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is a very nice example of King Khatvanga, how he took full shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he was not after any material benefits. He was not interested in material enjoyment, because material enjoyment is only temporary. Krishna explains in Bhagavad-gita that antavattu phalam tesham tad bhavati alpa medasam. The enjoyment which we get from worshipping devatas or demigods, the benefits we get from them are only temporary. By worshipping devatas, we can go to the planets of the devatas. Devan Deva Yajo Yanti. If we worship devatas, we get birth in the planets of the devatas. But we cannot live there permanently. We have to again come back after we exhaust our punya karma. So Krishna says, one who worships me, one who takes full shelter of me, he doesn't again come back, he doesn't again have to take birth in this material world, but he attains to the eternal world, which is full of bliss, which is full of happiness, which is eternal, full of knowledge. So, that's why we should become intelligent, not to run after only temporary material pleasures, which have a beginning and an end. But we should aspire for eternal pleasure, eternal happiness, and an eternal life, which is free from the miseries of this material world. What are the miseries of this material world? Birth, old age, disease, and death. These are the four miseries in this material world, which no one can become free from. Even the devatas also don't have a permanent life. Even though there is very great material enjoyment in the higher planets, but life is not permanent. So this whole material world is a temporary place, and there is no eternal happiness. But I am a spirit soul. Actually, my original nature is I am eternal. I am actually full of bliss and knowledge. But I can experience this only when I come to my original constitutional position. And what is my real original constitutional position? My original constitutional position is that I am actually an eternal servant of Krishna. And my real duty of life is actually to engage in the devotional service of Krishna. So only when I engage in devotional service of Krishna, I can become free from the association of the material energy of Krishna, which is actually making me forget my real nature, my original consciousness is covered. And that's why I'm identifying with this material body, and as long as I identify with this material body, I will continue the material life, birth after birth. So I cannot get real freedom, I cannot get eternal happiness and eternal pleasure. So only by practicing Bhakti Yoga under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, I can become free from all anarthas and achieve eternal world of Krishna by going back to Godhead. So these are the very great examples in Bhagavatam, like King Khatwanga, or even King Yudhishthira or King Parikshit. These are very great examples we can learn from, how they achieved perfection in the human form of life by hearing about Krishna, by engaging in the devotional service of Krishna, and they return back to Godhead to achieve the ultimate perfection. So I'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.